Detailing cars is one of those jobs that I feel like everyone says they could do it and get satisfaction from it, and as someone who has been detailing for over 3 years, most people that come through my job simply are not cut out to detail. The reason is in the name, because, detailing. There's so many details when it comes to just cleaning a car that most people don't consider. One thing that people I have trained or worked alongside typically miss is the railings of the seats on the car. It actually makes a huge difference. They're typically really grimy because most people really don't think about cleaning those at all. But when moving the seat, the overall perception of the car is actually affected by not cleaning the rails. Even if your focus isn't on the rails, just the fact that there's grime in your peripheral gives the car an overall dirty feeling. This is why it's so important to nail the details in anything you decide to do. So when I'm not at work, scrubbing cars, or making beats, I hop on my computer and I play some games. And boy, do some games miss the details, let me tell you. Corporate gaming companies in 2023 focus on graphical detail above anything else. Holy hell, look at the graphics out here, dude. It looks like a freaking wasteland. I can't say that I blame AAA companies for caring about graphics so much either, because of the hardware that just keeps coming out that is better and better every year. And especially as a consumer, where you have to fight tooth and nail for the hardware that comes out just so you're able to experience Starfield's barely playable 60 FPS wasteland. It kind of looks like out here, low key, but actually worse. There's less in that game than out here. With ray tracing being such an powerful option for immersion inside of a game, and the only game that I've experienced with ray tracing is Minecraft that I've been able to functionally play. I tried The Witcher 3, it needs some work or something, or I need just a beast of a computer, I don't know. But because of that, it becomes increasingly harder to convince yourself that you're immersed because of the hardware chugging the game and the game barely being even playable. It's now we get to the point in the industry where people have to pay buttloads of money for high-end gear to be able to experience the games from these companies. And the companies themselves, they just push and push and push the employees to actually finish the game to the point where they just release it unfinished and barely playable. They don't get enough time to work on the actual game itself. And it's all about money. We gotta pay those investors. We gotta make the money. And it drives me crazy. When money ends up getting involved in games, it feels like sometimes they can get so involved in the nitty-gritty details where they don't even actually end up making a finished product, or they miss the baseline of making a functioning game. This drives me crazy. People who try to run the company forget to ask the people making the game, does it feel good to play? Does it function? Is it even a fun format?
If it's not fun, why bother?
And these are basic questions I feel are completely missed when AAA devs are making games anymore. There's no heart in corporate games anymore, and I feel most of the time the top dogs of the industry are just trying to figure out ways that they can squeeze the most money out of you even paying for a $70 game already outright. And they charge us $70 when they're reusing previous assets. They add additional microtransactions for battle passes and skins and stuff like that. Sometimes even to access additional content in the game that should have been in the base game. And then the cherry on top of the cake is how they give you so much incentive to actually pre-order the game, when now anymore we're not even sure if we're going to get a finished product or not as a consumer when you pre-order a game. They're totally taking advantage of the faith and loyalty that consumers to their fan base have in order to just make an additional dollar. And I'm not a business expert, but that's not a long sustaining functioning mode of doing business. We kind of watch people like Activision or EA especially kind of just completely murder their fan base that they had before. It drives me nuts. But the graphics out here are pretty good though, man. Whoa. The shame for me comes from the potential of all of these companies, because we get games like Elden Ring, Doom Eternal, and Titanfall that are all games that have squeezed through the cracks. These are some of my most favorite games that I've ever played, that come from AAA parent companies that continue to try to pull a lot of this stuff as publishers with the consumers. Except From Software and Bandai Namco, you guys are still pretty cool. Please don't change after this video comes out. It will break my little heart into pieces. Break my heart into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. In the sun. Ay. So Titanfall 2 has this moment in the campaign that I remember extremely fondly, where you warp back and forth between time in order to avoid enemies and get the drop on the enemies in both time dimensions. It was a small portion of the campaign, but I haven't experienced anything that has utilized a mechanic like that in order to completely change how the game is played fundamentally for the most part when it comes to mainstream games. It also added to the story of the campaign? Like, what? Most of the games that we get that continue to be the ones that innovate and push the medium are games made by small indie teams or one developer. I had this moment during the holidays where I was playing Minecraft with my little brother on his Switch. I haven't played Minecraft in a while. I'm aware of a lot of the different things in the game that mobs do, like baby zombies riding on the back of normal zombies. Can you even see me? Or creepers in the game that are actually scared of the cats. So what I point out right now might seem silly to some people, but I just barely noticed this like a few weeks ago, so don't make fun of me too hard. I was walking around in survival and I ran across a bee on a flower, which I sat and watched mostly just out of boredom while playing with him. I chose to pay attention to the bee, so after the bee had collected nectar from the flower that he was on, the model changed, which gave a little bee pollinated booty, and there was a pollen trail that followed him after he left the flower. See, it was just a small detail like this that was arguably unnecessary. Like, the team didn't have to make something like this. They could have just made the bee fly around close to the hive and then just fly back in and then, call it a day. It's Minecraft, it's blocky. Who cares? Who cares? These guys care. That's the cool thing. They care. It's the fact that the team chose to take the time just to add a small detail like that makes Minecraft feel like both a labor of love and a living, breathing world. A great content creator by the name of Any Austin made a video on Tears of the Kingdom's woodworking with a friend that does woodworking as his job. Watching Austin and his friend actually look at the details, like how the piece of wooden furniture was built to match the environment that it found itself in, or like how in Rito Village they make the feet of the tables look like they're the bird's feet. Even the grain of the wood on the furniture closely resembles how a wooden table would actually be in real life. If you have the time, I highly recommend that video because it gives you perspective just to what lengths I think developers are capable of going to make their game feel like a world, instead of just trying to milk you with their product. The mechanics you're given in the tutorial area of Tears of the Kingdom as well, I never really fully realized the potential of all the powers combined and the utility of all of them in multiple situations. The vast openness of options just to be using time reversal to stop projectiles and throw them back at the enemy that sent it, or raise something, hold it there, use the time reversal power to have it just sit up there, and then warp through the bottom helped me get through so many shrine chests you have no idea. These options are like such obvious details provided by the mechanics, but for me they just hid in plain sight that whole time. In the moment that I noticed the detail though, that's the beauty. That's the beauty I'm hoping to capture in what I'm talking about right now. Alright, I got another game for you. Hopefully this next one explains the power of details. This is a game called Who's Lila? Who's Lila is a small indie game that has an immense amount of detail that you are encouraged to pay attention to because, well, the nature of the story is complicated and it is a puzzle horror game. The cool thing about this game is you control your character William's face, who is possessed by an entity named Lila, in order to advance dialogue with the other characters, and depending on the micro expressions and the not so micro expressions you create by tugging around his face, it goes down different dialogue trees that affect the different endings that you get inside of this game. Not to spoil too much about Lila, because I highly recommend this game, but this game will have you downloading a Steam extension that runs alongside the game, going to the itch.io page, and even Twitter for solutions to puzzles. There's even sections of the game that link you to external Wikipedia pages to explain plot devices. I was blown away in my 9 hours of playing through this game, how philosophical and horrifying the ideas presented had been, but how creative with small details the game flips in order to add to its storytelling. I will speak of one moment in the game in order to capture the insanely creative ideas that Garbage Heathen, the game's creator, had come up with. So if you are planning on playing it, I highly recommend skipping to this part of the video so I don't spoil it for you. But if you're down to know, I'm going to explain it now. Whose Lila symbolism focuses around Buddhist beliefs and spiritual practices from the East. It isn't obvious at first, but when you begin to dig up the layers of Who's Lila, you begin to learn how Lila came into existence, that Lila is a tulpa, or an entity of thought. I won't go into superb depth on what a tulpa is, but basically think of multiple people giving a thing attention. It creates an abstract being that has a life of its own because of the nature of consciousness. There's a section that creates an argument that identity is just thought, and therefore it doesn't actually exist. Monks in the East point to reality and consciousness being similar to watching a movie, so this game uses reels as symbolism for the egos of both William and Lila being inside of a singular consciousness, or veils for a singular consciousness. There's this moment where the game seems to freeze, but you're actually given control to move in the 3D environment on the side where you were controlling this illusion of ego, and you can choose to replace the reel with Lila's, or remove both reels entirely. A shift in presentation and how the game is being played to represent the story of this game happens constantly, and Lila has proven to me how a game can be made into a timeless piece of art with love, care, and intricate detail. As an artist, one of my favorite books is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I look up to Rick Rubin for a lot of different assistance he has provided to help musicians in the studio that brought us some amazing albums, and I could go down the list of top 100 musicians he played a part in bringing to life. My favorite quote from this book goes something like this: "Art is choosing to do something skillfully, caring about the details, bringing all of yourself to make the finest work you can. It is beyond ego, vanity, self-glorification, and the need for approval." Not only are all forms of art a way for me to care about the details, but caring about the details is a way of living life. And I choose not to just care about the details of the art. Don't just care about the details of the art. Care about the details of your life. Care about the detail that is right in front of you. And scrub the goddamn rails, bro. Come on.